Houston, we see you on a stereo.
Conspiracy, lies, truth, helping you understand the lies of the world and see the truth of the Bible. Welcome to Celebrate Truth with your hosts, Robbie Davidson and Pastor Nate.
Hey, at Celebrate Truth Radio, where we expose the world's lies and celebrate the truth every Saturday on Revolution Radio. I'm your host, Robbie Davidson, joined with my co-host, Pastor Nate Wolfe, sitting in a parking lot near Walmart. How's it going, Pastor Nate?
Hey, it's going well, man. I'm in Green Bay, Wisconsin. The relatives have been kind to me. I've enjoyed some great food and, of course, great Wisconsin cheese. You know, you got to have good cheese when you're in Wisconsin. But anyway, I am sitting in the Walmart parking lot with full bars, so I'm hoping I won't get dropped from the call tonight.
It's great. It's like a role reversal. This time you get to actually be in your car.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Cool. We do all sorts of type of shows on Celebrate Truth Radio. Do them in the future. We do them in vehicles. And I don't know, maybe we got to do some trains, planes, and automobiles, you know, like we'll just add the whole thing to it if we can do it. Some flights actually do have Wi-Fi, so that would be quite something, to be able to do the show on a flight. So maybe we'll do that in the new year. We'll see. But how's everything going with you?
It's going great. Family is good. And, you know, summer is in full swing. So it's a little crazy at my house with 2 young adults and 2 high schoolers still living at home. So, you know, we picked up an extra car this week. My son got a used car this week. He had been, you know, hoping to get. And so that's solving some of our logistical problems. When you have, you know, 4 people working full time and only 3 cars in the house, that's an issue. But so it's all good now, man. We're just looking forward to the summer and a couple of years I'll have all my kids graduated from high school. So that'll be an interesting phase.
I'm actually enjoying this little hiatus right now from all the conferences. Been on tour and doing a lot of conferences. And then obviously with the big announcement this week with Owen Benjamin, I've been really busy fielding a lot of different calls and inquiries on that. But it's going to be an exciting time here at the tail end of 2019. Got a few more conferences coming up. We're going to be talking about that today on the show, as well as Take on the World, Flat Earth International Conference, and a lot of others. But also I wanted to mention that if you're not able to join us at the Flat Earth International Conference in Dallas, then we do have the live stream option available. You can check out all the information at fe2019.com. And speaking of conferences, we've got someone tonight, a very special guest, the legend, the man himself that really, I mean, was one of the big names that started this all off here in modern day with his extraordinary work, Flat Earth Clues. Maybe he was meaning just to get some discussion going, maybe see if someone could, you know, bring this down. But if anything, it did the opposite. It exploded. More and more people started resonating with what Mark Sargent was able to bring with Flat Earth Clues. Mark, are you there?
I am here, guys, and thank you very much for having me.
Awesome.
Are you available?
Wait, I'm here, right?
There you go. You're here. Excellent.
Oh, you couldn't hear me the first time?
I couldn't hear you the first time. No,
that's weird.
Yeah, that's okay. I thought maybe you were being censored.
No. And I was looking at my mute button. I'm going, wait, did I make a rookie mistake there? Hopefully not. But anyway, how are you guys?
19. We're doing good.
Uh-oh. They just cut out.
Did we lose Robbie?
Yeah, I think we lost Robbie for a second.
Oh,
yeah.
Are we losing each other?
Well, I'm going to close down everything on my side just to make sure it's not me. But yeah, we lost you for a second.
Oh,
and
okay.
I think when I first came on, Nate could hear me, couldn't you?
Yeah, I could hear you. I heard your intro, Mark. Fine.
Okay, well that must be on my side. So we'll check it out. Anyways, tell the people a little bit about yourself if they're not familiar with who you are.
Right. I'm sure there's plenty of people that don't know who I am. My name is Mark Sargent. I am the freshman recruiter for a metaphorical university called Flat Earth, which means I am a Flat Earth believer. I do not think for 1 second that we live on this tiny little rock that's covered with water and covered with a little bit of wispy smoke that's flying through an impossibly huge universe at 5 different velocities in 5 different directions. I think we instead are living in a building, a very, very large building with walls and a floor and a ceiling, similar to a terrarium, a planetarium, a snow globe, whatever you want to call it. and that we aren't some insignificant little speck in the galaxy. I think we were deliberately put here, and that this whole place has meaning, and it just, if it was built, there's a creator, and that means that wherever you are in your spiritual life, you should probably reevaluate it at this point.
Now, when you put together Flat Earth Clues, I know you put together a few of them at first, but what was your thinking when you put together the very first one, Flat Earth Clues #1?
Oh, desperation.
Yeah.
More than anything. I was, because remember, I had been, I'm sorry, I probably should have put this in the intro. I first looked into Flat Earth, in the summer of 2014 and thought it was ridiculous. I mean, I wasn't shy about telling people, like everybody. Well, I shouldn't say everybody. There's a few people that don't think it's ridiculous right off the bat, but most people do. And I had tried to hammer that thing away for 9 months. And so just out of sheer desperation, it's like, you know what? I can't solve this anymore by myself. There's no way. And I considered myself a very clever problem solver. So I made my first video, which was, the Flat Earth Clues introduction, which was just basically a summary of what I thought the world was. And I put it out to the internet and said, okay, here's where I think I am on this. Show me where I went wrong. Here's my theory, like anything, like a thesis and a PhD thing. Tell me where I'm wrong. And honestly, though, and you guys can appreciate this more than most, the moment that I had when I woke up on February 10th in 2015 and heard the entire Clues in my voice, and got up at 3:00 in the morning and was taking a shower, and I could hear the whole thing just sitting there. It was like, okay, this is what's the next paragraph's going to be, and this is what the next paragraph's going to be. And I sat down, and it was probably some of the clearest writing, if not the clearest writing I've ever had in my life. Wow. To where when I was done, it was like, well, I couldn't stop there. I was like, okay, it was like the Forrest Gump thing where he's running back and forth across the country, which doesn't make me sound very smart. But that was it. It's like, well, I wrote it. I might as well narrate it. And so I got a microphone and a little headset mic and just a $20 USB headset and recorded, the narrative over it and made sure, that I didn't make any errors. So if I made any errors while reading it, for the most part, I deleted it. But I didn't have that many. And then when I was done with that, it's like, well, might as well add some visuals. And then I added the visuals. It took me all day to do this. And then when I was done with the first one, I went to bed exhausted and then got up early the next day and started over. And I made the first 7 clues in 8 days. And
wow.
That's the short answer to what you were asking. Desperation. I really wanted an answer to this, and I couldn't do it by myself. And so I just asked the internet for help. And, that was probably a bad decision in the long run, because they came back at me and instead of yelling at me and condemning me, and some people did that, of course, but they didn't do it to my face. The only people that contacted me directly were the people with positive or inquisitive, reach outs, which was, tell me more, or, the media, tell me more, or a subject matter experts. A lot of them in 2015 and 16 said, you know what? You might be onto something, as crazy as it sounds. Cool. So, yeah, there you go. Sorry, I ramble. That's what I do.
Cool.
Uh-oh, we lost Robbie again, didn't we?
Robbie.
Okay, this is where I take over. Robbie, are you there? Hello, Canada. Canada, can you read me?
Yeah, what's going on in Canada tonight?
I don't know.
I don't know what's going on.
Officially, I don't think it's Canada. I think it's Canada. And I said this up at the Calgary conference, which was, and I'm recording on my side in case his recording just goes belly up, which was, I'd heard this a couple times. I thought it was pretty good, which was, well, it's America, American. Mm-hmm. So if you're Canadian, you're from Canada.
There you go. Yeah.
Pretty easy to me. So why are you calling it Canada?
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah,
I don't know.
For sure.
The vowels are all wrong. And so, so I worked that into my Q&A sessions when I was up there at Calgary. And just the snickers I got from the Canadians, they just thought it was the greatest thing.
Nice. Yeah, now, when you went to Calgary, was that the first time you'd been to Canada, or you've been there many times?
No.
Well, you were there. You were there just last year too. So
I was there last year with Robbie. Well, okay, a couple things. First, I was up because I live in the northwest of the United States, northwest corner. You got to remember, Vancouver's right up the road from here. In fact, I went to Bellingham. I went to Western Washington University, which is located on it's the furthest northern major university in the state, and it's I think it's maybe 10 miles from the border. So what happened there was, and of course, people could go across the border and go to bars and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But in fact, the landlord of the house we were renting was from Vancouver, British Columbia. So Canada wasn't a big thing. Although most of the time when I went to Canada, it was before 9/11, and so that was when you could just drive across. You didn't have a passport. It was like they just kind of waved you through. They didn't care. And then years went by and I didn't go up there again. And then the documentary Behind the Curve came out and it premiered at the Toronto Film Festival. Oh. So I got to so I'd never been to Toronto before. So I flew up there with Patricia Steer and we did the Toronto Film Festival, which was a lot of fun, and came back and said, well, I'll probably never do Canada again. And then he calls me and he says, oh yeah, let's do a conference up in... Wait, that was Edmonton, right?
Yeah.
Edmonton, Alberta. Yeah.
Hey, there he is. Woo.
There he is. You back?
I'm back.
Okay.
Keep going.
So, by the way, you're a little quiet, just so you know. Okay. And then we did that conference, and then we drove from the conference to Calgary, where we rented a big Airbnb, and most of the speakers were there, and so we get to spend a few days. Jaron was Bob, Cammie, Jaron wasn't there. Wait, Jaron was there, right? We lost Robbie again.
Yeah.
Okay,
I saw some video clips. I think.
No, I'm sorry.
Skiba was there, and
Rob Skiba. Jeez, my memory. Sorry. Rob Skiba, Bob, Cammie, his wife, his son, Patricia Steer, Rick Hummer, Robbie, Matt Long, and I'm trying to think if there's anybody else that I feel bad if I left somebody out.
Yeah, wasn't that Matt's first major speaking? I think it might have been one of the first major ones.
Yeah, it was really good, and it was had a lot of fun at it, and so that was the second time. And so when we did the conference down in Los Angeles, we've done 3 so far. We did that. One of the people there, Sarah Stewart from Canada, and her friend were there in the audience, and she didn't even hesitate. Lots of people, you hear this. It's like, oh, we should do a conference. It's like producer. It's like, come on, you're never going to follow through, because most people don't. And she did. I mean, the second she got back, she's like, oh yeah, we're going to do one in Calgary. And that was awesome. And so
she's a go-getter, man.
She is a go-getter. And so I'll be darned. Here I go, fly back to, which is weird because I flew out of Calgary Airport to get to Seattle. And it's really, really quick. It's actually, it's barely an hour out of Seattle. People don't realize how close it is. And then so I went up to Calgary and did the conference with Robbie and Matt and all the other great people. And it was just awesome. I think most of the speakers, I think the majority of the speakers were American, if I'm not mistaken. And so it was a lot of fun. It was really professionally done. Real basic bare bones. Just get it done. And the turnout was better than expected. And I had a great time. Just enjoyed myself. And the weather wasn't awesome, but I hear that about Alberta a lot, which is.
I think everyone's confirmed to come back for 2020. But Mark, I think we're still, waiting to hear from your agent. Correct?
Oh well, yes. I mean, okay. First off, just even to get my agent, you have to go through my assistant, and my assistant's number is listed on top of it. I mean, it's really, like a really a velvet rope scenario. So I don't blame anybody if you can't get.
I had to go through like 5 people just to get to it. So I mean, it was like, it's a lot.
It's a layered approach.
It is. And,
a layered approach.
In fact, like Owen Benjamin tried to call the other day, and they just wouldn't let him through. So.
No. Lots of screening, lots of
screening.
gatekeepers, right? That's what they're called. They're called gatekeepers.
Yes.
I remember dealing in sales and stuff. You'd always have to get through the gatekeepers to get to the big decision makers, of companies and that sort of thing. So
the funny thing is, even though it's a bad term in the conspiracy world,
sure.
as far as the phone calls go, I have become one of the gatekeepers because my phone number's out there a lot, and people call me and say, "Hey, who do you have in this area?" Or "We're thinking of doing this. Who do you recommend?" And I'm always shuffling little things, Now whether
you have to get the Rolodex out, right?
Well, no, I've got most of them committed to memory at this point. It's like, okay, well, this part of this, or if I don't know, I tell them, I go, look, if I don't know, I can find out. And so I'll put feelers out every once in a while. It's like, do we know anybody in X city?
So how quick? I got a question. Let's go back to Flat Earth Clues here for a second.
Yeah.
How quick was the first call? Because talking to Rick Hummer and other people, that I've been, in this community since 2015, a lot of them, just reached out, you picked up the phone and you talked. But my question is, when was the first call to come in after you put out Flat Earth Clues? How many hours? How many days?
It was 1 week.
It was 1 week. Okay.
It was 1 week. And I know this because the first call was from Matt Boylan.
Oh, it was. Okay.
Wow.
Matt Boylan. Okay.
I will say this, as fruit loopy as he is sometimes, he has really good instincts on some stuff.
Okay.
And he, in fact, I've told this story before, whereas he called me before the clues were even done. So, like, I remember, because I cranked out the first ones really, really quickly.
Yeah.
And he called me on clue 8. By the time, but like the day I put out clue 8, he called me, and he pretended to be, I was writing about this recently, and he pretended to be like a guy from an education system. He wanted to interview me about such and such. and he was trying to feel me out to see if I was a real guy, and he goes, why aren't you answering my texts? I've been texting you since clue 2.
Oh yeah.
And I go, because I don't have a cell phone. So people don't realize if you text somebody and they have a landline, it just dies.
No, but even worse than that, Mark, if you text someone and it goes to their landline, usually there's a service that actually costs you money, because there's different landline services that will transcribe your text.
Yeah.
You never get them, but there usually is a fee for that. So you might cost a lot of money texting you to your landline.
Wow. So yeah, he was the very first one, and of course it was really flattering for me because there weren't a lot of people to research on Flat Earth, and I had seen, the only stuff I had seen was his early work and that interview that he did on the couch when he was up in Montreal.
Sure.
When he told the story, I was just mesmerized by it. I mean, I'm listening to this thing, I'm going, this is a freaking movie of the week. This is a great little Twilight Zone episode. I don't believe it quite yet, but there's something about it that really is like, oh man, this is a cool little story. And then I didn't know how to get a hold of him. And then it turns out he calls me, and the rest of it. There was some irony there where I was one of the only people with his phone number. And the media, I was the gatekeeper. That was my first gatekeeping duty, which was media would call me trying to set up interviews with Matt, and I would turn them down. Yeah. I think you mentioned that before. So how long was it for you then? Because obviously you're putting out the clues, and you're like, look, this is desperation. I just want to know, where did I go wrong? Of course, this is wrong. When did you actually become a flat earther, like 110%, where you just knew, like 100%? We're not on a spinning ball flying through space. When was that for you? That was probably in the summer when the first subject matter experts started calling me. The first guy, honestly, was so great. And that was Sean McCrary from the United States Navy, the Sparrow missile instructor. He was so awesome. And he was laying out, this is when, Jonathan was my co-host. Yeah. And he was laying stuff out that was so mind-blowing. It reinforced everything we had heard and gave us more information that we weren't even looking at. How that, they were targeting ships at 50 nautical miles, ship to ship, point to point with a 2-degree beam radar. And he goes, look, there's way too much curve to actually see these ships, and we could see them. And he goes, we could also see them with infrared at night. And this missile system absolutely required that the target was painted. And he would go on and on about this stuff, and navigation was all screwed up. And he goes, every Navy ship has to correct constantly for navigation stuff, and sometimes you show up to port early, or sometimes you show up late, depending on he goes, the maps are all wrong, but nobody puts one and one together. They don't connect the dots. And so if it was me, short answer, when Sean McCrary came out again, completely okay. I'll tell you exactly the moment was. It was when Sean validated himself, because lots of people are like, well, anybody could call up and say he's a United States Navy missile guy. Yeah. And Sean made 2 videos completely unsolicited where, in fact, Jonathan was going, man, you don't want to come out. You got to remain anonymous. And Sean's going, no. He goes, I want to do this. And he shot 2 videos. One was him, a selfie video of him flying on a military helicopter to the boat he was stationed on, which was the Iwo Jima. And the other was the missile, the inside of the missile training room, which I didn't even know existed, which was you take basically a building that looks like a gymnasium. It's so well lit on the inside. It's got really high ceilings and really wide. It's like a giant empty basketball court. And you put, and it's got these Sparrow missile systems sitting in the middle of it. It's like, oh, of course, because you're going to train on this. Therefore, you don't have to train on the ship, moving, with the weather conditions. Everything about the missile systems. And he takes it, it's really quiet, and he's showing everybody. And then he doesn't say a word, and he flips the camera, and he points at the cocktail napkin, and he writes, "Flat Earth." And then he writes underneath it, Mark Sargent. And he turns the cocktail napkin over to where no one sees it. He flips it around to his face. He's wearing his dress uniform. He smiles, and that's the end of the video. Nice. And I realized right then, it's like, okay, we're now in it's going to go to another level. And
so that was the point. That was the point for you, though. That was because I know
that was it. Yeah, that was it. It was like, okay, because at that point I had somebody that I could direct. It's like, I go, don't take my word. That was the first time I could actually say, don't take my word for it. Listen to guys like
5 months. This is like 4 to 5 months after you put out the first clues.
Yeah. Until then, I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, because I know that Rob Skiba, it took him like 8 months, and he was doing show after show after show. He'd be saying all the proofs, and he'd be showing this, and then he'd be like, but I'm not a flat earther, right? And it took him a long time. It was a real frustrating journey for a lot of people, just because he just would not commit. Right. So for you, though, it was about 4 to 5 months.
Well, it was, but I was a little different than Rob in that I didn't have an established subscriber base.
Correct.
So I had nothing to lose.
Correct.
So while I was saying I was a flat earther, and I was, there was still, that nagging feeling that someone was, I was holding my breath and waiting for some academic to come forward and say, okay, here's where you're absolutely 100% wrong.
Yeah.
Whereas Rob was hanging on and saying, well, no, I'm only a 90-something% flat earther. No, I always said I was 100%. But any fear I had finally just evaporated when Sean McCrary came out.
And for you, it was coming across the video about Flight Pass. That was pretty much your entry into this entire topic, was the Flight Pass video.
Yeah. By a creator out of Germany, of all things, named Cesar, CAE space SAR, and I don't know if his channel's still out there. And it was completely in German, and I don't know German. And he was talking about the flight paths and how they just did not make sense on a globe, because look at the double and triple connections. He goes, they don't make sense. And I knew nothing about flight paths and nothing about how the airline industry works. And when I watched that it got me thinking enough. Again, I didn't believe it, but it's like, okay, like a lot of people, it's like, okay, it's interesting enough that I'm going to pursue it further.
Sure.
Sort of like the Google rep, and we can talk about that later if you want. The software guy who came out at least 18 months ago, where he said, they asked him, why does Google recommend what they do on the sidebar? Recommended for you. And he goes, well, if the average person that gets into flat Earth watches 20 videos in a row, he goes, what do you think we're going to recommend? And not only are we going to, push that to other people that get into flat Earth, we're going to push that to anyone that goes to anywhere near flat Earth. And that's what they did for 3 years.
Oh, the good old days. Oh, the good old
Yeah.
days. We can
Good
talk
old
more
days.
about that. We'll talk more about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about more of that.
Yeah, definitely.
sure.
Well, that's interesting because I think a lot of people, know of you, but they don't really understand that kind of your journey, and that even from the very beginning, it wasn't solidified until the summer of 2015, where you came out, in February. I was watching those videos early on. I didn't start my YouTube channel until August of 2015, but that's when I finally was like, that's it. I'm putting my name. I'm putting myself out there. I'm 100%. I'd done all my research by then, and I was blown away. But I can say that, coming across your video, and I'm sure, some people have heard my story, but I actually, interesting enough, came across a video from 2007. And I documented this, and I pulled it up like live on the video. You won't believe how I came to Flat Earth. But it was atheists making fun of the Bible. And anyways, it had Flat Earth in the title. And I'm like, Flat Earth? And after I watched that video, which really kind of woke me up, I typed in Flat Earth, and sure enough, Flat Earth Clues. So number 2 video was Flat Earth Clues. And I'll tell you, when I watched, you just, your voice and just the graphics and just how you laid it out, and you went through each one, it was just putting all those, connecting all the dots, for me. Right. Awesome. And it was like, oh my goodness, like, could this be true? This is nuts. Like, this is nuts. Me being a hardcore kind of conspiracy theorist, it still was too much for me. That's why this topic is so tough and so difficult. Because even for the biggest conspiracy theorists, this is just out there. This isn't left field.
Oh yeah, yeah. And the only reason I've always been a fairly open-minded guy, but like anyone, I was in complete denial about this thing, where I just wouldn't look at it. And I think you've heard me say this before, where what caught me off guard was I had a visceral response to even clicking on the first Flat Earth video. I mean, I was sitting there alone in a house. I'd been living in, by myself pretty much the better part of 20 years in Boulder, Colorado. And I'm clicking on a video, and I actually get physically flushed. And I'm going, why am I getting embarrassed? I've gone through every dirty corner of the internet, and nothing's bothered me before. Why would this bother me, right?
Sure.
And that's what happened. It was like, and then all of a sudden, and I caught myself doing it. I was going, there's something going on here. And so and the more I clicked on it, the easier it got. But I completely understand people's reactions when they, when they have that knee-jerk reaction and, call it horrible things and question the education of the school that you went to and all this other stuff. But that's, again, I tell them, I go, look, it's conditioning. I go, you have the globe in your classroom, if you're in the United States, right underneath the American flag, usually. The American flag is with you your entire academic career. And remember, just going through the 12 years of high school, you're willing to fight for that flag. Right? A lot of people join the military. And so what's the difference between that flag and the globe? Almost nothing. They both symbolize the same thing. They're an icon, they're your home, and they've been with you your entire life. So I absolutely understand when people brace against it.
What was your first what was the first Flat Earth documentary that you came across, not including Flat Earth Clues made into a documentary, but what was the first documentary that you came across that kind of really, is one of note that you can think of way back?
Well, that's just it. There really weren't any longer
Yeah, but I'm talking about now we're getting into, like, let's just say getting into end of 2015 into 2016. They start popping up. I just don't know if there's any particular of note for you that you were like, wow, that really.
You mean like a compilation?
Yeah, it could be a compilation. Could be anything. But
that's just it. There really weren't, and that was where I kind of lucked out. Again, I'm fond of saying that I didn't invent Flat Earth, but what I did do was I created the Dummies Guide for Flat Earth. And I know that sounds redundant, and I don't want to say that too much because people will just turn it into a meme or a joke. But
it's like a 101. It's like a 101.
It is 101. And that was the difference between, Matt had some decent stuff out there. And of course, Eric Dubay had some stuff out there. But they were second and third year books if you treat it like a university. Nobody had made a 101 book. Sure. And I needed a 101 book just because I knew the audience I was going to talk to. So I made it, and there was really nothing. In fact, I kind of, when I released it, I didn't even release it in a giant form. I released it, one per day in a very, my YouTube channel was so new in terms of publishing that I wasn't even allowed to make videos over 15 minutes.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I remember that.
So, and then, but some other channels grabbed them. That's when everything changed. Because I made a Creative Commons license, and people grabbed them and they compiled them and put them on their channels. And I was getting way too many emails from these guys saying, "Oh yeah, I loved your 2-hour presentation. Oh hey, I loved your movie." and I'm thinking,
why did you do a Creative Commons license? Like, I've always been curious, and that's great. It's wonderful to see that. It's very rare to see that, and the fact is that you did that on every one of your videos right from the very start. Creative Commons. What made you choose Creative Commons?
Well, because I wanted the answers as fast as I could. Meaning, okay, if I'm going to put this out there, first of all, I don't care about thumbs up or thumbs down, so I turned that off, and I turned off comments, and it wasn't monetized, obviously. Mm-hmm. And so, but I wanted people to get a hold of me. So I put out my name and my phone number, and which was so smart. And I don't recommend people doing that. In fact, women today, I still don't recommend women doing that.
No.
And then I figured, okay, well, how else can I get this thing to spread? And when I read the little details about Creative Commons and YouTube, they said, well, people can grab your video and share it with other people. Sure. And they don't have to ask you permission for it. I'm going, that's an awesome idea. I go, here, take my video. I mean, what did I know? And some of these guys were pushing, by the time we were done, some of these guys were pushing 4 million hits.
Sure. Yeah.
Wow.
They could monetize it. So it's like, okay, well, there's thousands of dollars, which is I'm happy for them. But it was that's why I did it. Creative Commons, that means if you read the definition, it just says, well, people can share it with other people. In fact, YouTube even kind of encourages it, which is funny because most people don't. Yeah. And people can grab it, and they don't have the point is they don't have to ask you. It's if they can put it on their channel, they can just grab it. And I'm going, super great, go for it, wonderful. And maybe I can get some answers from academia quicker that way. And again, it came back to haunt me. So
yeah, well, I don't think it came to haunt you at all. I think by doing that, I think that it just spread your work that much more. I believe that it didn't hurt you one bit. It's very, very smart. It's not that it was a strategy at all. It's just what you decide to do. But honestly, that can definitely help. I've seen cases before, not in this topic, but other ones where they've done that and they've expanded. Their name has become a lot more renowned, and just their work, just because they do that. They make it a lot easier for people to share it, to mirror it, to compile it, to do whatever they want with it, right? And I mean, to me, it shows that you're really not in it for the money. Well, as far as motivations go.
I didn't want it to be a production. Are you kidding me?
Correct.
I was perfectly happy doing what I was doing.
I say that all the time. I say one of the biggest proofs that Mark wasn't just throwing this stuff out there, for the money, is he made a Creative Commons, for goodness sakes.
Yeah.
He put that up that anybody could take it and they could do whatever they want with it. So to me, the Creative Commons license really spoke loud and clear as far as your intentions and how they've remained. Now, sure, you might decide to monetize or do something, but the fact is your stuff is still Creative Commons.
Oh, right? Yeah. My default setting has never changed. For 4 years. It is still set at Creative Commons. Now, of course, I'm using copyrighted music or whatever. Sure. You're not going to be able to do anything with it anyway. No. You're not going to get
but you can still take it, even if it has copyrighted music. You can still mirror it. I mean, it's not even about monetizing your content. It's about being able to mirror it and allowing them to. Like you're not coming down on another channel saying, "Hey, that's my Flat Earth Clues. You're not allowed to mirror that." You're just go ahead, mirror it all you want.
Where it also helps, there's a secondary side to that, which I didn't really figure out until later. It was just dumb luck, which was if a troll wants to take it and chop it up and start making fun of me, hey, great, fantastic. I've never thrown a copyright strike in my life. If you want to make a video of me and put clown music over the top and arrows, saying that
it would be a full-time job, Mark. It would be a full-time job for you to actually go after everyone that's making fun of you.
Oh my God! Again, there's no way. There's no way I could do it
now. Yeah,
but no, I would never throw a strike anyway, because it's like, look, you've heard me say it many times, which is all you're doing, and I don't know why they don't listen. Maybe maybe things are going to go the way they're meant to be, which is you're just firing wooden arrows into a bonfire. That's all you're doing. From a distance, it really looks like there's a lot of activity and you're accomplishing something. You're just making the fire bigger.
I agree. Yeah,
100%.
Like I said, case in point, I came across a video making fun of it, right? Really trying to go to town in a cartoon format. And, all of a sudden, little did that atheist know that God was going to use it to basically, humble me, change me. And basically all of a sudden now, I'm doing international conferences, I've done documentaries, written a book, now I'm doing the radio show. Well, little did that atheist know, the laughs on him, right? All of a sudden it's spreading. So I'm never fearful of bad press or a piece where they're making fun of flat earthers, because quite honestly, most of us laugh at it when we first hear it. It doesn't really matter.
The saying, and I know it's been kind of changed into any even bad press is good press, but the original saying I actually like better, which is even bad press is free. And you can't put there's some marketing exposure. I mean, there's a reason why they call it marketing dollars. And in fact, the clip which I use for my promo, which I'm going to make another version of eventually, when LeBron James I was asking Kyrie Irving on international cameras, it's like, oh yeah, by the way, is the earth still, is the earth flat? It's like, do you know how hard that you couldn't, even if I had a briefcase of money, I could not get LeBron James to say that on camera. And he did it for free. And the secondary media explosion when every sports station jumped on that was like, oh, I mean, you couldn't, it was priceless.
Well, let's say we into like Netflix, because I think for people that are listening, this is probably where they'll probably resonate or understand maybe or heard your name. But Behind the Curve, I mean, it exploded. Obviously, you can maybe talk a little bit about Behind the Curve, but also just the explosion that took place after Netflix.
Yeah. So the documentary Behind the Curve, and you got to remember that when documentaries are made, I mean, there's I don't know, we'll just round it up, 1 million filmmakers in the world, probably more. And most of them can't even get their productions off the ground, let alone, actually finish whatever movie they're thinking of making.
Yeah.
And out of those, you get like the Toronto Film Festival was a perfect example where, because producers come and go and people make promises all the time. And they shot this movie and they shot it in 7 months. And there were 3,000 film submissions to the Toronto Film Festival. But out of those, they picked 100. And we were picked as 100, and then and multiple film festivals and people, and we kept making this top 10 list. We weren't winning any awards, because most of the awards go to some politically charged thing about some atrocity somewhere.
Sure,
they're dark and gritty. And this thing just kept making the top 10 movies you should see during this festival. And then we started making movies you must see also in mainstream. And then the producers were like, well, okay, fine. We did 28 film festivals in 7 countries or something like that. And, but it's not, it's probably not going to sell. And even if it did sell, it'd take several years to sell, and it sold almost immediately. It was picked up by Amazon and Google Play and iTunes and YouTube Red, and that was the back part of last year. And then in November, Netflix picked it up and they released it, and I severely underestimated the Netflix market.
Same.
It was huge.
I mean, apparently, and I got it because when I was staying up in Canada with a woman recently, that's all she used. If you're under the age of 30, chances are, because it's such a cheap bang for your buck, you're going to have Netflix, period. Sure. It's, for $15 a month. And I've gone through their catalogs. It's huge. For $15 a month, it's the best bang for your buck you got. So it's all of a sudden, and then they've got a category, the categories, the way they're laid out, they push it to the front and people start clicking on it. And the more they click on it, it's sort of like YouTube. The more they click on it, the more it trends. The more it trends, the more, it just keeps staying up at the front. I think it's still towards the front of all documentaries right now anyway, even now. And all of a sudden, instantly, my email load doubled, I think, within a week. And that's when I realized, because people were coming out of the woodwork, people I hadn't talked to since high school. Jaron was telling me the same stuff. I mean, a lot of people, it's like the people you didn't get to in the previous years, you were now getting to. And now it had kind of jumped the rails outside of the internet. And which is why, honestly, we can get to that later, which is why YouTube doesn't have to help us anymore. Once it got to Netflix, now it was a topic that could, what I call a campfire topic, which is, you can bring it up to anyone. It's like at a water cooler or a campfire, or it's just something, it's become now what I call the end of the conversation, which is, oh, that's a good title for a book. The end of the conversation, which is when you're talking with somebody, when you first meet them, it's like, oh yeah, you talk about the weather and the local sports teams, and usually the conversation ends with somebody with you exchanging interesting things. Like, it's like, oh yeah, I heard that you eat 3 ounces of dark chocolate a day, your cancer risk is reduced. Or, I heard that, something, whatever it is happened. Somebody died, somebody lived, somebody had a baby. It's usually something interesting and weird. And now Flat Earth has become part of that conversation. It's usually the trump card that people throw down. And which is why I love, and I'm saying this in the book, and I don't care anymore, because I'm not going to name who I heard it from, which is the Amy Adams story, which is, where she was listening. She was at a celebrity thing, and she said, and people were talking about conspiracies, and she threw down Flat Earth, even though she hates Flat Earth. And I'd like to make that very, very clear. She threw it down like a trump card. She goes, no, you can put that to bed. Let me tell you what my family's into. She throws it down, and she proceeds to try to destroy Flat Earth in front of these A-listers. And during this proposed destruction, she converts them, and a number of them. Because they're like, because if somebody talks about it with such passion, it's like, oh, I hate this so much, and you're like, you got your phone on you. It's like, yeah, what's this Flat Earth thing? You start looking into it. So it's awesome. I'm sorry, I don't even know where we were where we started on that road.
Oh, we were talking about, like, obviously Netflix and just under.
Oh yeah. Netflix became freaking huge. And now it is to where I was, and I don't go out much. Remember, I'm on a rural island north of Seattle. But when I go certain places, people look at me and stuff, and
you're getting recognized. You get recognized actually in restaurants and even on planes now these days.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, you want me to tell you? So we're flying down to the New Zealand conference, because that's a thing, a Flat Earth New Zealand conference. Never been to Auckland in my life, and here I'm going to this, and there was a guy passing around bread. We were in business class. And he looks at me, he goes, you want any bread? That's what happens in business class. And I go, no, I don't want any bread. And he goes, are you sure? He's looking at me kind of like he knows me. And I go, okay, fine. I'll have a couple of those garlic things right there. And he goes, yeah. He goes, he's handing them to me. He goes, you want them because they're flat and they're round. And he winks at me and he goes, I have to pass out more bread. And he goes down the aisle, and I'm going, what is happening?
And you're with your mom. That's the funniest part about this story, is you're with your mom in this one.
Yeah. I mean, I got witnesses to this.
I know. Your mom told me. Your mom told me when we were in New Zealand.
Wow.
It's just blew me. And we got to the hotel. I mean, again, we're talking about. We got to the hotel, and this kid, he couldn't have been, I don't know, 28. I'm older, so everyone looks young. And he looks at me. He's staring at me. He goes, I know you from somewhere. And I go, okay, where? Because I'm not going to give him any hints. And he goes, Netflix, right? And I go, yes. I go, the Flat Earth documentary. He goes, right. And then he goes, I hear this more and more. Maybe it's a younger generation thing. You just can't condemn people anymore. It's not cool anymore. So he goes, I don't believe in it, because, but I really respect you got, you and the others, coming out and speaking your mind and staying true to your ideas. I go, wow, that's really awesome, man. That's great. And, just over and over. And, on the way home in Los Angeles, I'm just sitting at a sports bar at the airport, and, waiting for the flight, and a young couple comes up and says, hey, can we get a selfie with you? We just watched the documentary, a couple days ago. Really, really cool. It's like, yeah, sure. So, yeah.
It's funny, too, because at Netflix, too, I wonder if there's almost close to a petition being put together about seeing you and Patricia get together. Maybe for the record, you can kind of explain that you're just great friends. And, I've heard that tons. Even people that reach out to me, they're like, what's going on? You think they're ever going to get together? I'm like, I think they're just great friends. But unbelievable, because they use the love story kind of element, in Behind the Curve. They have all aspects. They got the nefarious arch enemy. They've got they've got all these aspects. But one of the key things you hear from a lot of people is that love story, right? The Mark and Patricia love story.
People don't understand the power of creative editing and what editing. I mean, George Lucas was like a big believer in that, and it's like it doesn't matter how much footage is shot; it all comes down to the editing. And the editors, I will say this: Behind the Curve maximized what they had. They took shots at Jared, they took shots at Bob, and they created, they enhanced, I should say, a romance between Patricia Steere and I, which Patricia Steere and I had delved into the idea back in 2016,
I believe.
Sorry, what?
2016, I believe.
Not even 2016, 2015.
Was it 2015? It was 2015.
Yeah, it was 2015. That's right. We had met and kept it really, really quiet because we didn't know, where the community was. The community was really, really small. And so when they did the movie, they really focused on she had gone to London in 2016, mm-hmm. And by the time and the movie was shot in 2017, but they made it seem current. And they even took some footage that Patricia and I had when she came up here for a meetup in Seattle, and we went across on a ferry, and she filmed the whole thing. Mm-hmm. They showed that it was great production value. I gotta hand it to them. They showed it like that was when we first met. Yeah, and it was all just an illusion, and they played up on that angle. And but I will say this. I will say this. I'm not gonna lie to the listeners because I try not to lie anymore. Which is that one moment, because that's really where they got this from. That one moment where I was sitting next to her when we were down at Houston at her house, and I was going to be going home, and I was kind of pining for her. They caught a couple looks on camera. Those looks were absolutely authentic. I will say that, and which is I hadn't seen her really since in person. Since she had gone to London, and since I went up to Canada for a year and spent a year in Victoria. Yeah. So seeing her, come on. I mean, she's a knockout, and she and I got along very well. And the whole reason the Secret Show thing evolved was because we were talking about Flat Earth so much privately. Mm-hmm. That we all of a sudden it's like, we're just wasting production value here. We should just because it was all safe. It wasn't like we were, just swearing and drinking and doing drugs and, doing all these horrible things on camera. We were, it was all good. So yeah, the film really pushed it. And so when I was in Arkansas, I felt bad because I was asked that when I was down in New Zealand, a radio station. But the worst one was in Arkansas when I was, when the film, I went up for a Q&A after Behind the Curve at the film festival at Hot Springs, and I go up to the front, and like the second question was, well, what about Patricia, right? Yeah. And this guy's asking, and he's enthusiastically, he wants to know how it panned out, and he was not alone. At least I think half the audience were like nodding their head, going, "Hey, yeah, what happened?" I'm going, "What?" And because watching the movie and being in it, I knew what was going on, and so what I tell people is I go, look, we know we have on-screen chemistry, and we also know we make a good team, but as far as this this goes, I don't know. I try to tell people, I go, look, I don't know where I'm even going to be in 6 months because the producers have been swimming around like sharks for the last 2 years. So who knows what's going to happen with anybody? I mean, I can't even tell you where I'm going to be, let alone.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that after the break. We got like another hour to go here, going into hour 2. But before we do, if you can kind of mention any links, anywhere you want to kind of promote as far as learning.
Oh yeah, sure. To find me, it's real super easy. Just Google Flat Earth Clues. That's the easiest way. You'll find the clues. And my main website is called enclosedworld.com. And the book is called Flat Earth Clues, and the movie is called Behind the Curve.
Cool.
That's pretty simple. What is going on with Enclosed World? You used to have like a subscription. Maybe you want to mention that.
Thank you for mentioning that. It used to be MarkSargent.com. That was a small-time producer named Joe Reel out of San Diego, and no good deed goes unpunished. He said, "Oh yeah, I'll do a subscription site for you. I'll give you half the money." It's like, okay, sure. And he buys the rights to MarkSargent.com. He doesn't give me any money, and then I never hear from him again until I said, "Hey, can I buy Mark Sargent back?" And he goes, "Yeah, $5,000." It's like, go to hell. So you can do whatever. But so if anybody out there is still subscribed to MarkSargent.com, and I don't think there's many people, please do not give them any money. Go to your credit card and cancel that payment, because I don't get a dime for that. I mean, it's great.
I find it interesting now, though, that when you do actually go to YouTube and you type in Flat Earth Clue, sure, it brings up Mark Sargent, your channel. But when you're actually looking for the videos, they're nowhere to be found. You've got all these debunking videos, just like anything when you type in Flat Earth now. It's pretty dismal. We can talk more about the censorship.
Right.
And that stuff into hour two. But what would you say so far right now kind of has been one of the big highlights for you, though, in this journey? You've been in this, obviously since early 2015. Is there anything that kind of stands out?
The big standout moment for me was when everything was just going to a new level, when National Geographic flew me down to Los Angeles to do the segment, even though they hated us. And then during that, I got to, Patricia and Rob Skiba and I were invited up to an A-lister's home in the Palm Springs, to talk about Flat Earth. And, during the National Geographic shoot, it was just one of the most bizarre things ever. We go to a meetup that was, basically set up, by Nat Geo, and we ended, making new friends. And they told us how big this thing really was. It was great to see that scope. It was a real eye opener. It's like, wow. It's like to hear that it basically, and it made sense to me that remember, Flat Earth doesn't care how rich, how famous, how talented, how beautiful you are. It can get into just about every conversation. It doesn't care about demographics.
Yeah.
Sure. And there was a lot of people that came out to when the National Geographic, correct? Or was that?
That meetup at least had 100, 110, 120 people, and wow. I mean it was tough to even figure them all out. And again, I'm sorry, there was another thing. CBS was there at the same time, and there was a turf war between.
That's right, they were fighting.
They were fighting us, the National Geographic, because they paid for me to come down. Just my tickets, they didn't pay me any money. They said that CBS couldn't talk to me. And so CBS they were going to talk to Jaron. Jaron was a no-show. So they talked to Patricia, and CBS put it up on, did a wonderful interview with Patricia on CBS Sunday Morning with Jane Pauley. And then it was up on YouTube. And once it hit about 1 million hits, they were getting too much peer pressure from their older audience, and they pulled it. They pulled the clip, and it's like, wow, CBS caving in.
They actually pulled that interview with Patricia.
Oh yeah, they pulled it entirely. I mean, I remember because it was top of the charts for several months.
I remember it well.
And then all of a sudden, it was gone, and I couldn't find it anywhere. And I looked in my archives, and it's like, no, it had been removed. It wasn't like it was made private. It was removed, and it was like.
Did you ever download it?
Oh yeah. No, are you kidding? No, I mean her trailer right now uses snippets from it, and it is absolutely on my channel. Yeah. I've got evidence. In fact, I made a video with it. I wasn't even going to mirror it on my channel until they pulled it. And then once I put it up there, I said, oh yeah, CBS kills it. And I knew why. I mean, it's because their audience skews older. I mean, CBS is an older network, and they, those people, a lot of their members, some of them watched Apollo, from their television sets, and they're like, wait a minute, what? Because CBS gave us a fair shake. And that was, they did not destroy us. That Patricia did a brilliant interview, and they were very kind. And they didn't support us, obviously, but even that neutral stance did not sit well, and so that's why they pulled it. But anyway, all that happened in literally a 1 week span, and that was my favorite week so far, which is like all this stuff is happening. I was getting these new perspectives of who liked us, who didn't. Nat Geo hated us, CBS wanted to shoot us, and we gotta go. Okay.
Yep. Hold that thought. We're going to break. We'll be back right after these messages.
Listen to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message. opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Hey, welcome back to Celebrate Truth Radio, exposing the world's lies and celebrating the truth every Saturday on Revolution Radio. I'm your host, Robbie Davidson. Joined with me is my co-host, Pastor Nate Wolfe, and our special guest is Mark Sargent. In hour one, we were going through a lot of stuff, and we're going into a lot here in hour two. And I wanted just to bring up this, Mark, with you, obviously talking about a lot of stuff happening. One thing I wanted to make sure that I got to mention here on my show, because I get a lot of people reaching out to me. They're like, are you okay? You and Mark okay? Still, even though the fact that we're on tour, we've done 3 conferences already this year, and we're going to do like 3 more. People are still asking, are you and I okay?
Okay, first off, I never liked you. Okay. Second...
I just had to, because people still reach out to me, even though they know we're like practically on tour, hanging out. And
by that, I mean, as a person, I just really just no. No. I don't have any problem with you at all. No, I know, and of course, we're talking a little bit about the.
What we talked about behind the curve. So obviously, let's talk about Logan Paul.
Let's talk about Logan Paul. No, I don't blame you for a second about the Logan Paul thing, because if I was in your shoes, and I like to consider myself very empathetic when it comes to that, I may have done the same thing. And that is, look, it's a producer's dream when somebody buys VIP tickets that you recognize. Absolutely. And Logan
General admission. They bought general admission tickets.
Well, yeah, I'm sorry. General admission tickets. Either way. I mean, if you recognize the name of people, and he does. I mean, look, the guy that has millions of subscribers, millions. I mean, he has more subscribers than most of the, if not all the Flat Earth community combined. He's got a lot of subs. So when I did my thing at the conference, when I left the conference early, it had nothing to do with you just kind of, I mean, it was, I had no hard feelings towards you. And I mean, I knew that you were under a lot of stress, and normally I probably would have even told you about this going out, but I didn't want you to be put in that sort of position. And so, no, I have absolutely no problem with you whatsoever.
I have told people, and this was even actually, I think, even just a couple of days after it actually happened. But I said, had you had come to me, even though you would have been, I don't want to put you in this position, I would have gladly said to Logan, I'm sorry, we just don't have time. If you had just brought up, said, look, I don't want Logan to come up. I know, I mean, I can't look back on it, and it happened what it happened, but I just wanted to go on the record and make sure that you were, we've talked about this before, but everyone, the community as a whole, I would have definitely not risked losing you for the community and for everyone involved to basically have some guy that's kind of a firecracker, kind of unpredictable, going up, for 5 minutes to what's he going to say? I mean, I still was a little bit scared on what could happen on the stage. At the time, though, he seemed very respectful. Nothing happened, but I would never allow one of my speakers to feel, uncomfortable. Going forward, though, it's never going to happen, because like you saw in New Zealand, when I was bringing up certain names, I'm making sure that going forward, all the speakers are included on any type of quote unquote surprise, that the community is well informed. So we're never going to run into that problem again. But no, I mean, for the record, I mean, Mark and I are awesome. I say this to many people, but I still get countless people contacting me like, are you okay? You and Mark, are you okay? Are you guys still fighting? I'm like, we never were fighting.
No, we never were fighting. And I put that in the book, by the way, which I tried to clear the air on just about every issue I could think of, including Logan Paul, including Metatron, including the thing. I won't get into it too much. I'm not going to give it all away. But the point is that what I care about more than anything is the community. And I basically had to, I wanted to be the insurance card on this one, which was there was no way, in case things did go south, he couldn't be allowed to punk the entire community. Sure. And that's, in the end, he didn't, because otherwise he gets to run the headline gets to run Logan Paul punks all of Flat Earth. Sure. And somebody with that little You know what? He's not even worth me tearing down.
No, and I've always been happy because if anything, with people that were really, coming against you and really suspicious, I saw a lot of comments were like, "Wow, Mark called it." Mark knew, or Mark didn't have a good feeling, and he was trying to protect the community. So I've told you this before, but if anything, it was something good that happened for you. I mean, why do you think that you? And I mean, you're obviously the guest, but obviously Patricia gets brought up a lot as far as the woman. But why do you think you two are like the most hated in the community? What's your feelings on that?
Oh, I will try to be as humble as I can when I say this, but there's a reason why envy is one of the seven, which is, that's it. I mean, look, if all the world's a stage, nobody likes to, everyone gets jealous of other people that have more stage time or more light or a brighter spotlight on them. I fall victim to it. Every time I see a channel that has more subs than I do, I squint a little bit. It's like,
this is what I don't get though about Eric Dubé or Matt Powerland is both of them were given the opportunity to have the red carpet, the spotlight, the stage, whatever they wanted, and both of them kind of refused in a very derogatory way. So, that's always a suspicious part.
Different. For me though, remember they're completely different circumstances. One. Sure. Eric, and I know this from I'll say it. I got no problem saying it at this point. I'm older, which is, look, I know from a fairly trusted source, and I actually do trust this source, that Eric is absolutely scared to death about coming to the States.
Okay,
because he is worried that he is on a no-fly list, an American no-fly list, and I get that. And here's why it can be problematic, and that is if he does fly to the United States from Thailand and he is on a no-fly list. It's going to be a little tricky getting back, because then you've got really only two options. Exactly. You either go up to Vancouver or somewhere in Canada and see if you can fly out of there, or you take your chances and try to fly out of Mexico, which I think would be a little dicier. And so I can see where that would be a real fear. And we saw a little bit of that even when he turned down Eddie Bravo's thing to just fly to another island in the Pacific Rim. He's like, nope, not going to do it. It's like, wow, you didn't even blow, let him down softly. It's like, you're going to tell him on air. It's like, nope, not going to do it. It's like, he just offered you VIP passes. When it comes to Matt though, I honestly, you watch the movie. It's not an exaggeration. You've talked to Jaron. I mean, he's wound up. You talked to Matt. He's wound up really tight. Yeah. And I said this in my thing. I said, look, unfortunately, for good or better or for worse, Matt could not do a decent interview to save his life. We've seen him try, and he cannot do it. It's like, wow, for a guy that actually did stand-up comedy at one point. He's just so anyway. So as far as Patricia and I being hated, most of it's just envy. Everybody gets suspicious. Look, got to remember the audience, the direct audience. That's the conspiracy crowd.
That's why I always say, come out and actually meet them. Take the time, take the opportunity, come out to one of these conferences. It's a great opportunity, not just to meet them, but meet the community. It's so helpful. I mean, Pastor Nate can maybe weigh in on this, but again, being at a few conferences himself, just how important it is to actually come out and meet people face to face, spend time with them. I mean, we're all just
people. You have to see for yourself. And here's the thing, like, I mean, Mark can verify. I mean, I don't know him from anything before. I mean, I talked to Mark one time because I thought, hey, this guy puts his phone number on YouTube. I called and talked to Mark briefly, But the thing is that you hear all these different things about people. This person's a shill and this person's a government agent. And since I got fired, I went to several conferences, right? Because I had time. And I had some people that donated to help me make sure I could get to some of these conferences. Right. And so I got to meet people in person, and I went to several conferences in a row where, hey, there's Mark, there's Patricia, there's, so-and-so. Yeah. And I always have felt like, if you have the opportunity to meet someone in person and talk with them and formulate an impression, even if you've heard negative about them, I mean, why wouldn't you take that opportunity to engage yourself one-on-one, even if it's just for a few minutes? And, I always operate under the idea that, hey, the Bible says do unto others, right, as you would have them do unto you. So, my thinking was, hey, if somebody said some bad stuff about me, I would hope that they would take the opportunity to just spend a few minutes with me. And what I was seeing, Mark and Robbie, on Facebook and stuff, is you have pockets of people that are very negative about conferences and yada yada, saying Mark's this and Patricia's that. They've never been to a conference. They've never met you guys in person. They've never had any conversations with you.
Right.
And to me, that's very disingenuous.
Yeah, I take some of it with a grain of salt. I mean, yes, when I meet people live and I hear that I'm better live than anything, I know it sounds like a band, but it's true. He's so much better live. But it is. I mean,
it's true.
It's true. But there's still going to be people, like Mad Mike still hates me, and I've run into other people that they've got other reasons for hating me. But I like to remind people, especially on YouTube, that you got to take the comment section with a grain of salt, because literally you could make a video of a puppy chasing a kitten through a wonderful meadow and a butterfly landing on the dog's nose, and within 100 comments you're gonna have somebody say, thumbs down, this is effing gay, unsubscribe. It's like, what? And then it gets, that's just the intro, and then they go into everything from religion to sexuality. Oh, hang on, my ride's here.
That's a great segue. Yeah, it's a great segue into the police and into censorship, and they're coming down strong on flat Earth. Now, you said that we don't really have to worry about it anymore, but quite honestly, I am quite concerned just with how far YouTube's going. Just recently, there was an article that came out that they're furthering the censorship coming against channels. There was a bunch that were actually deplatformed, demonetized, and they're only going to increase this. Do you not think that this is a little bit of a concern, considering that YouTube is one of the big ways that people find information online, especially in digital format?
You're absolutely right. It is and it isn't. If anyone hasn't heard already, YouTube is okay. How this started? Let me give you guys some backstory real quick. YouTube was, they're a television network. They are the biggest television network in the world. Plain and simple. I don't care what anyone else tells you. They have literally 1,000 lifetimes worth of content in there at this point. Oh, a lot of it's really, really terrible. But they have something like every minute there's like 80 hours worth of YouTube videos every minute being uploaded. I mean, you're never going to catch up ever in your life. And what had happened was they were, like any television network, you get your money off of advertising. Companies come to you and they say, we want to put our truck ads on your videos. And it's like, okay, X number of thousands of dollars, you collect their money and you put their truck ads. But of course, they don't know the internet very well. So you're just putting their ads on everything. You don't approve, it would take too much time to approve all the videos. It's like, would Chevy Truck really approve of this video that we're putting? They don't care. They're just going to throw it out there. Well, you have marketing people from these companies that got really, really upset. It's like, look, some of these videos are ridiculous, or we don't agree with their opinion, or they're violent, or whatever it is. And YouTube says, what are you going to do? We're Google. The parent company is Google. What are you going to do? Pull your ads? And they did. They started pulling, the big corporations started pulling their ads. So YouTube panics, and they said, okay. And so last year, which is known as the adpocalypse, they YouTube started demonetizing. They started with the video game channels, which was kids that just went out and made recorded their video games,
live streams,
put the ads on them, especially violent video games. And so a lot of people, demonetized. And then they started kind of delving into hate speech. There's two types of things that you can get on YouTube. You can get a copyright strike, which is just using music or video or whatever, which is not really much of anything. Or you can get basically community guidelines strikes, which says you're doing something unethical, like hate speech. And so now they're not only are they killing channels that are doing hate speech, but if you're on the borderline, they're starting to demonetize and some of those channels. And with YouTube, they're kind of in a weird spot. Sorry, I'm taking a long way to get here, but a backstory I think was needed, which is they're kind of in a tough spot because one, Flat Earth has made them a lot of money over the last 3-4 years, made them a huge amount of money. I mean, you got to remember, if you're a television network, you encourage binge watching, and there's not a lot of topics that someone will sit down and watch 20 videos of. So if Flat Earth is that thing, it's like, okay, Flat Earth is now a binge watch topic. Yes. That's a gold mine to YouTube. So it's like, okay, what do we do? But it's a really weird topic, and there's lots of people that complain about it, even though their complaints aren't based on hate speech. So we don't fall into the community guidelines thing. We're not inciting riots. It's not like, come on, we've had hundreds of regional meetups and conferences. Not a bad thing has never ever happened. So they can't even queue up and say, with the exception of the white supremacy guy who was just tagging flat earth, spray painting flat earth on all these national park things.
Oh,
but
wow.
he wasn't, the thing was, he wasn't even spray painting white supremacy stuff. He was only doing flat earth, but he was a white supremacist. So they were kind of tying that. So so what had happened was last year, Congress went to Google and YouTube and they said, okay, what are we going to do about the borderline stuff that's on YouTube? And out of all the topics that YouTube brought up, remember, this is to the United States government. Yeah. They said, okay, well, we're working on this whole flat Earth problem thing.
Yeah, but that should make anyone stop and pause. The fact that they're bringing that up, the U.S. government, why, if it's so ridiculous and stupid, are they bringing up that as a concern?
And so, it's absolutely right. But at the same time, they can't. They want what I've been telling people. It's like, look, they're not putting the brakes on. I haven't gotten an email, with the exception of Red Pill Philosophy, and that's a perfect example. Even his channel wasn't taken down. It was just demonetized. And they said, look, we're going to recommend it less, which is basically, and you heard me joke about this for years, which is I put a video on my channel, and I should bring it back up because it was priceless. This guy who actually made a video and put it up on YouTube and was asking people how he could get flat earth not recommended to him anymore, because no matter what he typed in, we kept showing up on his recommended list. He was going, no thanks.
I remember that. Yeah,
and it wouldn't end. I mean, seriously, tractor maintenance. Here's 5 flat earth videos for you. Potato salad recipes. Oh, here's 4 more flat earth videos. It just never ended. And so them taking their foot off the gas, it's not going to make that much difference. We've gone so far off the internet now. Now, does that, to your point though, Rob?
I guess for new people, I guess my point, I understand where you're coming from, Mark, but I'm talking about for new people that want to, start voicing, getting on to say
new
YouTube
people,
and just start. Yeah, I'm talking about brand new people that want to actually, start voicing their concerns, or just get things out into the open on a platform such as YouTube.
You're absolutely right. It will affect new people. Well, there was another rule that went into place though, which was, okay, so new people that are trying to get into flat earth and getting really, really pumped and want to make flat earth videos, they're going to have a really, really tough time. And also the new rule, which is if you don't have 1,000 subscribers, you can't even live stream. Which is a whole nother thing. Shout out to Zulu One. Hope he gets his 1,000 here really soon, because I know he's at 980 something.
Oh, wow.
But it also helps us in a way, because remember, there's a lot of new channels that are coming out against us.
Sure.
A lot of dedicated troll channels, and their stuff is getting buried as well. Mm-hmm. And so, even though you can see it in the filters. So if you typed in flat earth today and just filtered to one day, the top 10, 15 videos, they're almost all trolls. Gotcha. Coming at us, but those get buried now in general searches. So I mean, I understand why YouTube's doing it, but you got to remember they're in kind of a tight little squeeze right now, because they can't. Here's the other thing. Sorry, I got to get this out. Which is, flat earth is so integrated into, we're so broad now across the YouTube spectrum that if you decided to start killing flat earth channels, you would have to kill every conspiracy out there at that point. At that point, it really goes Orwellian. I mean, at that point, you would have to do a general sanitation of YouTube. And YouTube has never been America Online. It has never been Disney. YouTube has always been YouTube. If you try to turn YouTube into something else, people will leave in freaking droves. And what'll happen, you'll get a competitor, someone with a lot of money that'll start up a brand new channel, brand new service, says, hey, you know what? You can bring whatever you want over here, and it'll catch on really, really quick.
A lot of money. I say that to a lot of people because they're like, why don't we just go to this website or that website? I'm like, do you understand how much money you need to run a video streaming platform? It's unbelievable. But you're right, Mark. It just takes someone with a lot of money.
It'll be supply and demand. If there's enough people whining about it online, people. How many people have come to me and says, is there another place we can go? Is there another place we can go? Yeah, eventually, if there's enough supply and demand, if the demand's there, producer will come in. It does not take that much. I mean, it'll take some money to do it, but they could, it just take basically a big corporation you've already heard of that says, this is the next YouTube. Remember when Facebook was never, ever going to decline in any way, shape, or form?
Well, I know
older people using it.
My daughter doesn't even use it. None of her age group does. I mean, they're on Snapchat and other platforms. So,
Right.
no, I mean, there's a huge demographic that don't even touch Facebook with a 10-foot pole. So, yeah, like anything, nothing stays on top forever. The competition's good.
In the end, I'm not worried because Flat Earth has now gotten to the stage where it is everywhere. Sure. It's not. I mean, it's on Facebook. It's on.
Let's segue into that as far as where do you see it going? I mean, not just obviously with certain things that you brought up in hour one, but like just really talking to people. Where do you see it going here in the next 5-10 years? Like,
it's going to the point where I've always talked about critical mass, and you and I we've been there back when mainstream media. I remember the first article that I'll give you some perspective. The first article I think I ever charged me up was when who's the guy that got out of jail? Rob Skiba's mentor.
You're talking about Ken Hovind.
Ken Hovind. Yeah, when Ken Hovind got out of prison, they asked him about, it's like, what's your opinion on flat Earth, right? And I kind of felt like it was Han Solo getting out of like the carbonite. It's like, oh God, everyone has delusions of grandeur. I mean, that's what it was like with Ken Hovind.
Sure. Can you imagine? He's just like, what?
Flat Earth is like, how long have I been in? It's like, but the thing was, they asked him about this, and it was published in Forbes magazine. Mm-hmm. And I remember it's like, wow, look at that. We're freaking. We got like a two sentence blurb in Forbes magazine. Yeah. And the next thing you know, you flash forward 4 years later, and that is not a lot of time. Forward not even 4 years, less than 4 years later, and Jaron's complaining because Newsweek is picking on him. It's like,
I know. Yeah, I know.
I'm sitting there. It's like, oh yeah, you can complain all you want. I want Newsweek to pick on me, and they won't even talk about me. So where we go. That happened in 3 years. So where are we going from now? There's only a couple tiers left that we haven't broached. One, of course, is Primetime Network, which is I mean, I was really, really happy for Patricia to do the CBS thing with Jane Pauley, but that was CBS Sunday morning. Really interesting that none of the major networks, with exception of super, super late night, like Nightline did a thing on us, but I think it was like pushing midnight. Primetime, they really don't like talking about us if they can. And by that, I mean ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox.
Heck, you were on Australia Today. I mean, you've been on some pretty prime time.
Yes, I did do the Australia, but that was a morning show. And we're really close. So yeah, you're absolutely right. We're got to the point now where we should be, we're getting there. And of course, the next thing that it's guaranteed, it's going to happen. It's just because the numbers have been too big and it's been happening for too long.
Well, you talk about a network show. Maybe just what do you think? Like, honestly, just knowing the media, kind of watching this journey, what do you think the show would revolve around? The community, personalities?
It's not even a big mystery. Everybody would treat it, everyone's already got the blueprints, and the blueprints read almost like, and because I was talking to a producer in LA at a restaurant that Patricia and I went to, which was, and they, it's completely unsolicited. This guy just shows up out of the blue. How often does that happen? And he basically, the layout would be very, very similar to Ancient Aliens in terms of format. All you do is replace the word aliens with flat Earth, which is just have a group of people that travel around to different locations and either do experiments on flat Earth or look at, old evidence, new evidence. I mean, everything from going to a library and looking at old maps to doing laser stuff, to going to conventions, to going to meetups, to talk, to subject matter experts. I mean, the thing writes itself. And at the very end of the show, the episode, you say, does this visit to blah, 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 looking across the bay and seeing an object 100 miles, does this prove flat Earth? And then it's like, it's a cliffhanger. And it's like, you decide, we'll come back next week and we'll look at something else. You never, ever answer it. Yeah. You just keep putting the seeds in their head every time. And Ancient Aliens was brilliant at that, and you make sure you have a narrative. I mean, the formula is literally there. Sure. And every producer that I talked to kept going down those lines, which was, it's a reality show that it's not like, one of the
Flat Earth real world, like
it's not Flat Earth world where you stick people in a house and give them a bunch of alcohol and let them take swings at each other.
Although that would be pretty fun. I remember when after the Flat Earth International Conference in Canada, when I took all you guys up to the mountains there, and when we stayed in that house, we were all just looking around. We're like eating dinner together, just hanging out in this one big house.
Oh, yeah.
But imagine if there were cameras for the whole weekend and you were to cut that together. Be some interesting conversations going on.
Well, and here's the thing, though: there's not enough drama for the media in that case, because the Flat Earth family, as much as there is drama in the Flat Earth family, we'd have to bring in Matt Powerland and Eric DeBay in the house. Yeah, you'd have to introduce drama. I remember when I was down in New Zealand, I did a radio show from my hotel, and they took calls. And I don't know if I told you this. They took calls, and after it was over, I wish I would have recorded it, because I try to record the little production notes in between. And she goes, "Oh, just so you know, there were a whole bunch of calls in support of Flat Earth." And I go, "But you didn't take them." She goes, "Well, no, we didn't take them." She goes, "What fun would that be?" She goes, "People calling up, hey, you're absolutely right. Thumbs up, next caller." Really? She goes, "That's a boring conversation." She goes, "The only calls we took were people that were against you." And I'm going, "Oh, I get it. That's just how the media works." So in this sort of case, they're looking for conflict. And with a show like this, producers have always said, they go, it doesn't matter whether you love it or you hate it, as long as you're engaged, as long as you're watching it. That's all we care about. You could hate the show all day long. A perfect example would be, oh God, I hate to bring them up, but Jersey Shore. The American MTV production, that was literally about New Jersey people, in a house fighting each other. It was like watching a slow motion motorcycle crash. And yet people were compelled to watch it. And it's like, oh yeah, because they love to hate some people. And I hate to say it, but even Patricia and I, we joked about it, which was, it's like, oh yeah, people would there'd be people that would hate us. In some cases. And it's like, that's the same with anything. It's like, oh, I like this character, but I hate this character. That's what they want.
Sure. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's kind of standard, that's for sure. But you definitely think that in the next while there'll be some sort of television show.
Oh yeah, they have to. The numbers here, and here's why. If anyone has any doubt, I mean, first off, there's been producers literally swimming around forever. A second, of course, the Netflix, honestly, Behind the Curve documentary did so much good for us.
Yes,
because what it showed is that it's viable. If it's trending, who cares what the numbers are? It's in terms of, it's like who loved it or who hated it. If it's trending, that's what the producers look at.
Sure.
And then the other thing is and we see this every freaking week in YouTube, which is all these massive YouTube channels which are still broaching the subject because they look at the analytics. People don't understand. It's like if you have a 2 million sub account, you are constantly looking at analytics. And it's like, okay, what topics can I kind of coattail on? What can I grab? And the perfect one I should mention that just happened, not even a week ago, would be Niga Haiga. Remember, they did that kind of Lab Cody funny parody thing on us months, in fact, it might even be like up to a year ago. And all of a sudden, they're back in it. They're talking about it again. In fact, they just watched the documentary and they were commenting on it. And they kept saying during it, they're going, okay, just to let you know, we're not flat earthers. We're just saying there's something about it. All right. Just to be clear here. We're not flat earthers. And it's like, how many times we heard that before? It's like, okay, that's Rob Skiba all over again.
Yeah.
Well, anyway. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that's like Rob Skiba or even Owen Benjamin, right? He's just, I don't know, but I'll tell you, there's a lot of weird stuff going on.
Yeah, I'm not. It's like, okay, maybe I am.
Yeah, like, well, okay. most of us went through that kind of transition, right? Or we went through that same kind of storyline where we're just like, no, there's no way, there's no way this could be true.
Yeah. Well, even like the Shane Dawson.
Have a lot of subs, though, you're really afraid of the backlash, which is, again, you could plot a graph. It's like, if you have 10,000 subs, you're not that scared. You have 100,000 subs.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Red Pill. Red Pill philosophy. He was like, no, I'm not saying. I mean, they all say the same thing, which is, I'm not saying I'm one of them. I'm just saying thinking.
Although amazing, and I bring this up all the time when people bring up the Logan Paul thing. But what sparked a bunch of these truther channels, such as SGT Report, also Christopher Green. There's another one. I think even Alexandra, she put in. You saw the Alexandra, video with the girl talking about flat Earth. I'm sure you saw that, Mark. But anyways, she was talking the connection between Logan Paul. But what I'm saying is, even something like Logan Paul that was horrendous still woke up a lot of people going, wait a minute, why are they going so much against this, right? Why are they allowing this to happen? So it's interesting how something so bad that people want to rail on in the flat earth community is actually doing us more favors.
Oh, yeah. No, don't get me wrong. And I've said this several times now, which is the Logan Paul thing, as cringy as it was the worst. It was the worst parody thing.
Dude, they had a shrine. They had a shrine in my picture. It was ridiculous.
Awesome. As soon as I saw that, and honestly, they gave it away. Their production value is so terrible. They gave it away too early. It's literally in the first 8 minutes, you're going, okay, I see what you're doing here. I mean, you're not even close to being serious. No cliffhangers at all. No. But the friend
falling over the edge.
Falling over the edge. They lost somebody over the edge. But the media exposure on it was monstrous.
Yes.
And it, more people kept getting back into. Every time you think flat Earth is fading, it's not. True. Something happens, and then we get this new surge. Now I'm waiting because we're in the off season of basketball. I think, unless the Raptors, I haven't even followed the series, but like Kyrie Irving is in free agency again, and now there's a chance he may go to Los Angeles. There's
how long until an A-list? I'll get your prediction. Obviously, it's just your opinion, but what would you say until a literal true A-lister comes forward and does not recant? I mean, no pressure, nothing. They just come out and they say, "No, you laugh at me all you want."
2020.
2020. All right.
I don't know, for whatever reason, I have this weird feeling about 2020, and I don't know if it's just a symbolic thing where it's like, 2020 vision, clear sight, realize, that whole thing. But if I had to take a bet, I would, because this year just seems to be, right now, it's Flat Earth on tour. Which again,
sure. And as well as I that there's a bunch of Hollywood people out there. I mean, obviously we can't disclose names, but they're out there, right? So it's just a matter of time for one jumping out, and I think a lot more people will get brave and jump out with them. But it just takes that one person, Well,
I mean, you and I, we won't mention the A-lister in question, and I'm definitely not. You guys are thinking I'm going to put it in my book. I'm not. But if he pulls the trigger on, because he's absolutely interested in this project. If he pulls the trigger on it, then we all of a sudden become we go to that next level immedially. Sure. If that happens, but I'm just playing the odds. I try to play it safe if I can, which is I'm going to assume it's somebody else. And then I will call him up and say, where have you been?
Yeah.
What happened to you, man? I mean, because at one point, I mean, seriously, let me put it this way. When I go to LA and a meeting is set up without me even knowing about it, I'm not even told about the meeting and I'm in one. Then then we're talking about something that was meant to happen.
Also maybe for our audience as well too. You just recently had Trinity Broadcasting.
Sorry, I completely forgot about those
guys. That's an interesting development because now you got a Christian, network. I would say the largest in America by far. I can't.
It's huge.
And they come up and they're interested in possibly doing some sort of show. I mean, I'm still trying to rack my brain on how that all works.
Let me elaborate on this real quick, because that was completely unsolicited. I did not know anything about. I mean, of course, I knew who Trinity was, but I don't watch their channel on a regular basis. No. But everybody knows who they are. I mean, they're a really big player, and they call me up without any context, and they say we're going to come up, and they treat it so nonchalant. The next thing you know, there's a full film crew here, and they shoot a full blown television segment. And afterwards they're feeling myself and the topic out, and I'm hitting them with everything I got. And where I'm using a lot of your guys' quotes from one of your conferences, where is, as far as from a Christian standpoint, it's the most powerful tool that's ever been seen. Yeah. And they're getting it. In fact, when I was quoting, I got to say this, you guys are way better at this than I am. But when I was sitting there in front of what's his face, forgive me, I forget his name. The letter's still lying around. But I was quoting enough chapter and verse, and I was rattling off chapter and verse. Their eyes were lighting up the size of dinner plates. Nice. And to the point where they're going. I mean, you can tell. And I was asking them, and they were absolutely thinking. So they're going to air the segment. You know, they're going to treat it no different than National Geographic. They're going to air it. They're going to see how social media responds, and if they respond favorably, they're thinking about running their own show. And why wouldn't they? I mean, it's if it can be used to further their cause, then why wouldn't they?
Which is interesting, because I would imagine, and I'm just throwing it out there, that they're going to get a lot more negativity than positivity when they do throw it out there, right? So it'd be interesting to find out how that all, goes over for them. I mean, regardless if they want to put a show together, it's just saying right now, as you know, there's a lot more negativity around, churches and Christian, kind of mainstream Christianity when it comes to this topic. I mean, we're working through it, like Sarah, kind of being shown the door at the largest church in Canada. I mean, I've been kicked out of my church. I've been kicked out of 2 churches, me and my family. And then you got Pastor Nate here, my co-host. He got fired for simply going to a conference that was speaking about flat Earth. So again, they're really not for it. So it seems very encouraging if they're wanting to, kind of look into the topic more.
And I get that. And I even addressed that in the book. I made a little message to the pastors of these churches, and I said, look, I get it. When you reach a certain level of congregation, no different than the people that have subscribers to podcasts or radio shows. Oh, well, here's a perfect example. In fact, this should give you some perspective on the pastor's side, and that was, and you know this one, Robbie, which is the Alex Jones show, before Alex, became a bad word.
Sure.
When his group approached me 2 years ago, at least, and said, hey, we're thinking about doing a show and we're covering the flat Earth topic. What, how long can we do a show without actually mentioning the words flat Earth? And I go, maybe 10 minutes. And there was a pause, and it was like, you know what? Can't take the risk. It's too, they were afraid of the topic. And that's the Alex Jones show.
Wow.
And now, granted, we've come a long ways in 2 years, but, the church would have the same.
Me. I can do a whole hour or 2 hour interview without mentioning it once. I mean, Scientism Exposed, my documentary, doesn't mention flat Earth at all. But again, it really points 110% to flat Earth, but it never mentions flat Earth once.
Sure. But I get it. Look, if you're the largest church in Canada, and I know a lot of churches say they're the largest church and whatever, but if you have a congregation that's 7,000, 10,000 people, you are really worried.
That's big for Canada. Trust me. It's not like the mega churches in the U.S. where that's like puny. That's like a normal sized church. In Canada, trust me, that is the largest church. I mean, I've looked it up. It is definitely the largest church in Canada. Wow. But again, it would not be considered massive by U.S. standards. I mean, they're 50, 60, 70,000, some of those mega churches. But it is intriguing. But I'm talking to Sarah, and I've been talking to Pastor Nate, and we're talking about ways of kind of working with the church. Like, we're not willing just to walk away from this. We definitely want to work on this because, again, it is valid, it is important, and really for Christians, the Bible is important. Do we take it literal or not, especially when it comes to creation?
It is a fear factor, but I also think it's an education situation too, because you have the fear of, especially. Some churches are more independent. I mean, the church that I was ministering at, they had a local leadership, but, the church operated by itself. There wasn't any, higher ups or, people that we were worried about, getting a phone call from. It was just the local leadership freaked out, But so you have the fear factor, and some of these denominations, even though the pastor may be kind of the big shot in the local church, they often, have to answer to, higher powers, and they're very afraid of getting kicked out or being replaced or, whatever. Was it Chuck Lawson or Pastor Lawson? He first kind of came out very positive, and some of his, clips, he's like, hey, they make some good points. And then next thing you know, he's like the angry guy in the pulpit, railing against flat Earth.
Yeah, I found out about that, just real quick to interject, that he got railed on so much by flat earthers that turned him off. Again, we should never judge a community by the comments, like Mark had brought up. We should never judge a community by the comments. But unfortunately, when all you're getting is hate mail and stuff, it really turns you off really quick if you're first starting to look into it. You could see
the anger, right? So you knew somebody made him upset, But not just the fear factor, but it's the educational part of it. I mean, Robbie, when we first started this show, I fully shared and divulged and said, hey, I was shocked after 20-something years of, teaching about creation and whatnot, when I realized that, I blew it. I missed the boat on that, the true biblical creation. And it took me this long. And so, I think that in the Christian scene relating to flat Earth, it's almost like, as Paul, the Apostle Paul mentioned to the Thessalonians. He basically said, look, don't treat unbelievers harshly, because guess what? You used to be someone who didn't have that faith. And I think we have to adopt that same attitude. It's like sometimes we look down at somebody, who's religious and oh, they don't believe the true creation. They don't even read Genesis. And it's like, yeah, but we have to educate, and I think that's going to take patience, and we're going to have to treat the people better than what they think we will treat them like. And if we can do that, we might get their attention just long enough to help bring them along, with some flat earth Bible clues. It's like, hey man.
Very true. Very true. Very true.
Yeah.
No, and I think that's the one big reason why, Mark has done so much, in the community. And, I remember listening to him early on, and even while, he had every opportunity to, cut someone down or attack back because they were attacking him, he never did, so he's always been very classy. Yeah. I mean, especially, just being in the position that he's in. And really, Mark was accessible. He puts his phone number, for goodness sakes. I mean, that is a dream for any media. It's like, oh, wow, we can just call him up. We can just get an interview now. It's like, yeah, I'll do it now. I'll do it. 3 a.m? Okay, I'll wake up and I'll do the interview. Like, Mark is so accessible, but I'm always a huge fan and someone that wants to support Mark. But even Patricia, in the sense that they have just spent so much work and they have devoted, their life to this. Right? And
Patricia's listening in tonight to the show. She messaged me on Facebook. So, hey, Patricia.
Oh, man, seriously?
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Yes, Patricia's listening in. So, no, it's awesome. It's great. I mean, just seeing how everything is exploding. It's just been an amazing ride. There's no doubt about it. Maybe you could talk a little bit here before we get to the end of the show about the new project that you're working on. Obviously, you've done quite a few clues. I think you're now on clue 13, or is it 14? The last one.
Wow. You know what? I should probably look that up.
Code of Credibility. I think it was the Code of Credibility.
Code of Credibility, I think, was...
that was your most recent clue. So I'm not sure.
That was the most recent clue. And then what I started doing after that was, other than the conferences kept me really, really busy.
No, your project. Your project.
Like my projects. Yeah. The big one that I'm doing right now, and I have been prodded on this, not just by you, but for other.
Oh, I know. But I was going to make sure every opportunity I saw you in person, so I could actually physically prod you. Mark.
Thank you. Thank you. Which was, most people don't know that I did the Flat Earth Clues video series first, and then it was turned into a book. Basically, it was the transcripts of it. It was.
What it was for me though? Like in I think when you did your speech in Canada, and when I heard it, knowing that you've written your speech, just how you wrote and just how you were able to convey that message and how powerfully it was to be presented, I just was like, Mark, you've got to write a book. Like the way, and then now even with our being on tour here with all these conferences, how you're kind of talking how we got here and how you're able to weave everything together based on this journey for the last 4 or 5 years. It was just to me, it makes so much sense, and I think you're doing a phenomenal job. I'm excited.
Well, yeah, in this case, and you were one of the first people, and honestly, the first time you brought it up to me months ago, which was, and I thought, I was like, oh, I really, because I'm lazy like anybody else. Like, I don't want to write a book. Because honestly, with the Flat Earth Clues book, the first book was called Flat Earth Clues: The Sky's the Limit. I didn't have to do anything. I mean, literally, it was a producer called me up and they said, "Hey, how would you like to turn your clues into a book?" I go, "Do I have to do anything?" You go, "Nope, just send us the transcripts." And I go, "Sold, right on." I didn't even have to do the illustrations. They took of everything. I mean, honestly, I didn't think it was going to happen. And the next thing you know, I get a box in the mail with copies of the book, and then it was on Amazon already, and which was really, really great because I had a reference point now for other things. Because now I can actually say, "Oh yeah, I'm an author." But what started happening was, so much has happened, as you know, in the Flat Earth community in the 4 years we've been doing this, that I've had several people, including you. And seriously, once the first time you mentioned it to me, I've been keeping mental notes in my head anyway. It's not like writer's block doesn't mean anything to me because the stories that this thing writes itself. It's already happened. It's just history, and I'm just kind of chronicling it. Which is it's like, okay, can I write a book about what has happened to us in the last 4 years? And other people have been already working on this. One of the producers that was soliciting us for the True Television project back in the beginning of 2016, who was fired. She's working on a book on this, and I probably shouldn't tell her that I'm writing this.
But even your speech in Canada at the conference, that should be included, like something along those lines. Because again, it was just
a modified version of that speech exists. Yeah. So don't worry about that. I mean, I can write a troop inspiring speech fairly quickly. But this one, so the first book was called Flat Earth Clues, The Sky's the Limit. This is called Flat Earth Clues, End of the World. Little play on words there, where, because one of the most obvious questions we get on a regular basis is, show us the edge. Is there any pictures of the edge? And it's like, is there an end of the world? You get this in almost every interview. What's at the end?
Sure.
And so it's like, okay. And so I just started making notes, like, okay, how would this thing flow? Where do I start? And I kind of treat it like a long interview where, in fact, I'll tell you what, just for you guys, I will give you, here's an exclusive. You ready?
Nice.
Oh, I'm excited.
Here's exclusive. I will give you the chapter names right off the bat. And so chapter 1, Look Away, which is, you don't want to see this. There's nothing to see here. I'm basically trying to reverse psychology. I'm trying to, you do not want to look at flat Earth, which of course is never going to work.
Yeah.
2, How We Got Here, which is a modified version of several speeches that, I go into, like the speech I'm giving this year. But the speech I give in Dallas will probably be a slightly different version than that. Chapter 3 is Experiments, Test, Observe, Repeat, which goes into obvious experiments that other people have done, everybody from Jaron and Bob to Rob Skiba and D Marble and those guys. My favorites that are out there. Number 4 is The Questions, which is like a Q&A where I'm trying to head people off the pass and answer questions before they even ask them, which is like, okay, here's the most common questions I get. Here are the answers I got for you. Start here. Number 5 is How NASA Failed, which is just a big teardown of NASA, one of my favorite topics, and why we pick on NASA and what NASA has done terribly. I treat it basically like a failed Hollywood production company. Number 6 is Word on the Street, which will probably be one of the more controversial topics because I'm talking about people in the community, people that have affected my life in certain ways during the journey. Everybody from and these are inside people. So that chapter 6 is really for the Flat Earth community. So when I talk about Matt and Eric and Patricia and Bob and Jaron and D Mark, Paul on the plane, and other people, I'm pretty sure you're in there, Robbie. So number 7 is Behind the Curve, which goes into behind the scenes. Little things about the movie that you probably didn't know, and my take on it, and what they really shot, what they left out, what they included, creative editing, all that stuff. Chapter 8, there's only 13 chapters, by the way. 13, pretty scary conspiracy.
Which is interesting because you have, I believe, 13 clues out right now, which is really interesting.
Well, there you go, 13 clues. So number 8 is Subject Matter Experts, which goes into all the subject matter experts that came forward starting in 2015 until now. And my favorites and what they meant to me. I don't go over all of them, obviously, but I give them the list. And a lot of this is kind of a reference thing where it's like the book. In fact, I encourage people in the book. It's like, put the frickin' book down and start clicking on links. I don't give them the links. I just go search for this. You will find these things. It's not secret information that's out there hidden in a vault. You can find all this stuff instantly. So that's Subject Matter Experts, number 8. Number 9 is Friends of the Family, which is all the people that are outside of Flat Earth, hardcore people that have benefited Flat Earth. So everyone from rapper B.O.B. to Kyrie Irving to CBS. I include CBS in there because they did a wonderful job before they caved into peer pressure. Owen Benjamin is in there as a Friends of the Family because even though he's not a complete diehard, he's not dedicated to Flat Earth, he's definitely helped us. Number 10, of course, the flip side of that, Enemies of the State, which goes into all the people that are outside of Flat Earth that have caused us grief. Everybody from, the usual suspects, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Bill Nye the Science Guy, Brian Cox, different organizations, including
Elon Musk's got to
oh my God. I do a thing. I'm hoping I don't have to cut it back, but I think I spent like 3 pages on Elon Musk. I mean, I could not stop writing about him.
Nice.
When I was doing this, like it was just pouring out of me. It's like I realized how much I hate that man. He's just I said some pretty unflattering things. I said, look, first off, he should never ever be allowed on camera to be interviewed about anything.
Oh, he's horrible.
He's a silent billionaire. It's somewhere off in the corner. Never ever talk to the guy.
I'm just curious. I'm curious in the next 5 to 10 years who you're going to hate more than Logan Paul. That's what I'm curious.
No. Well, Logan's in there. Obviously, Logan.
Of course, he is. Of course. I'm just saying when you said you hate him, I'm wondering who you're going to hate more.
I hate Elon more than Logan because Elon can generate headlines.
Okay.
Just when he opens his mouth, he can literally make up anything he wants.
Yes.
And the media will cover it, which is one of. I know we're wrapping up here real soon. Which is by the New York Post ran that article that I just smiled so much. Which when they said Elon Musk is a total fraud. That was literally the headline for the New York Post in that section. Anyway, number 11 is religion and why flat Earth matters to you. Mm-hmm. Which covers all my favorite chapter and verse stories regarding flat Earth. Stuff I didn't talk about. I mean, I hinted in of course the clues about the Tower of Babel. But in this, I cover other things like Satan and Christ on top of the highest peak, the story of Joshua,
cool.
in the sky, the second coming. Oh, it just goes on and on.
Very cool.
So those. Number 12 is the flat Earth problem, which goes into Google and YouTube and the government and why this is a big deal, why science is bracing against it. And I really focused on the National Geographic thing where they came to me during the article and they cut it completely out of the segment where they asked me if flat Earth potentially could lead the world into the new dark age. And I was going, wow. It's like, this is a little heavy considering it's barely lunchtime, but okay, let's go with that. And so we but that so the flat Earth problem, and then of course chapter 13, end of the world, which is moving forward. And is flat Earth, does it represent something that could where is it going? Is it potentially destructive? Or is it, something you've heard me say, is it a new golden age? Does it usher in a new golden age, or does it usher in the apocalypse? And some heavy stuff, and it goes into some simulation theory. By the time I get to chapter 13, seriously, everything's going off the rails, and it's like, okay, a lot of stuff happening here. So make up your own mind. And then towards the end, I give speeches. I give a kind of a mini speech to science, to people who are against us, to the agnostics, people that are on the fence about us, and of course to the flat Earth faithful. And that's how I ended up. So
I'm very excited.
Yeah, that's great.
You know exactly how excited I am, but I'm really excited, and I appreciate the exclusive and breaking down all the chapters. And
that's great.
Amazing. Yeah, for
I really had to get this out anyway because I really want, no matter where it goes from this point forward, I want people to know it's like, okay, if the water, of course I don't believe the water is crested. But if there's a high water mark, I'd like people to know where we were when it happened. So
sure, it'll be nice to just have that, everything like how we got here and just the entire story from your perspective.
It's probably going to be anticlimactic because we're still on tour. We haven't even gone over to Europe yet. And,
hey, it might be a trilogy. It might be a trilogy, right?
I've actually got if it is a trilogy, I've already got the third book worked out. So don't worry.
There you go. So maybe we're going to see like a trilogy. You can have that one come out in 2021 or something like that. But hey, let's get the first one done, and really excited. It's been amazing to have you on. Real quick again, just to let everyone know where they can find you, your work.
Oh, yeah. All you have to do is Google Flat Earth Clues. Easy to find, or any browser, will work. My channel name is Mark K. Sargent, but you don't have to memorize that. My website is enclosedworld.com. And the book on Amazon right now is called Flat Earth Clues. The documentary is called Behind the Curve. And of course, I endorse all sorts of channels. And I got to mention this just real quick because everyone, which is if you're looking for flat Earth models, a 3D model, not a digital model, definitely check out flatearthmodels.com.
Absolutely, Chris Pontius, just an incredible artist. I've got him all myself.
Amazing.
He's going to have a big display in Dallas. We're working on a big display that he's going to be there with his van and everything. I'm really excited to put that together. It looks like us three, we're going to be at Take on the World here in August in Ohio, which is exciting. And all three of us are going to be at Dallas, Texas for the Flat Earth International Conference. So it's going to be awesome to be hanging out and doing that. I think the community itself, like I said, is just exploding. So many different conferences, like I've lost count this year. They're popping up everywhere.
The ones that are still left real fast. So I'll be speaking at the Gather Festival in Stockholm at the same time that the UK conference is happening, and that's September 12th. And in fact, I'm going to be doing that from September 8th to the 16th. So I'll be in the UK, Stockholm, back in UK, up in Ireland. I'm doing the Mount Shasta conference September. I'll be there, I think, the 18th to the 23rd. I do not know if I'm going to make it to Amsterdam yet, but I know the Amsterdam conference is happening, and that's going to be really, really cool. I encourage people to check that out. And then, of course, the monster of all conferences, the Dallas International Conference.
And it's going to be quite something. I've actually just started talking about new stage designs and everything for Dallas. And I'm looking at, obviously, every year I try to improve. And I remember it was like yesterday when all of a sudden February 2017, I announced the first ever, Flat Earth International Conference. And it's just unbelievable, even in the conference space, how much this is exploding. So it's encouraging for me seeing that happen. It's kind of neat, even bringing up Behind the Curve, because even in that movie, I can always look at that at the end and kind of see, the very first conference there, right? All the shots at the end. And it would be nice, 20 years to look back and just be able to see that, So, and again, I guess I could say the same thing with Logan Paul. I guess a lot of the conference is shot, but it's exciting. It's amazing. I'm so happy that you're a huge part of this community. Keep doing the amazing work that you do. You're appreciated by so many, and honestly, it's a real pleasure not just to know you, but also to call you a friend. Each year we get to know each other better and better, and I am going to keep prodding you.
Thanks, man. Thanks. I'm not busy enough. Please,
Especially
get more work thrown my way. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, it seems to me like you just got down to it, and you were able to whip that thing out pretty quickly. I mean, I'll tell you.
Again, it was always there. It was just a question of I was always going to write it. It was just a question of when, and I needed people to bug me. So fine.
So really, you write it, you do the audio book, and there you go, right? So, I mean, and you could probably take that audio book and put some visuals to it. You got a whole...
thanks. Really? You're already telling me I got to make a video series out of it?
No. That's just a bonus. That's only if you feel like you want to. I think the book itself is a big present enough, so...
Don't miss Celebrate Truth with Robbie Davidson and Pastor Nate every Saturday, 7 to 9 Pacific, 10 to midnight Eastern on Revolution Radio. They talk the Bible and how it exposes a lot of lies in the world with special guests, roundtable discussions, and call-ins from you, the listeners. This is not your typical Christian radio show. Celebrate Truth with Robbie Davidson and Pastor Nate every Saturday from 7 till 9 p.m. Pacific, 10 midnight Eastern on Revolution Radio.